Welcome back, guys. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, and actually I filmed it, but then on a different crankshaft, and then I put the SD card on the bed of my truck and drove away. And there went 30 minutes of good footage. So we're gonna do this again with a different crankshaft that I need to do, and that's grinding a crankshaft. I had a couple people ask me, how do I do it? If you want the right way to do it, watch someone else. Because guess what? I don't do anything the right way, but somehow it works. So let's do it. This is a Simpson crankshaft, which I'd never heard of Simpson before, but I'm doing a motor right now. It is that block right there. And basically it's India taking a licensed Perkins block and doing their own thing. So it measures at 220 cubic inches instead of your 203 or 236. So it's right in between there. So everything on the crank is standard, but pistons are metric. It's a whole lot of weird going on. I might even do a video on all of that stuff. So we're going to be grinding this crank. First thing I do, knock stuff over. You're going to get what's radius gauges. You're going to need a whole set of those because radiuses are important. And so this is the one that I find is the closest match, because on something especially India made, they're cheap and they don't do it right. So that's a pretty good fit. Let's see if we can get no shadows in it. So that's a pretty good fit, I think. And some of it matches, some of it doesn't. Radiuses are very important on a crankshaft because if you don't get them right, you can split and break stuff, especially on diesels. So this is the wheel I am choosing. Right now I have it set up on a balancer wheel. And this one it's already balanced, so I don't need to mess with anything. And this is just my tooling. Everyone is going to be different for whatever you've got. So this, I can just move it, and it doesn't flop to one side or the other. These wheels are balanced, and so then you've got these little brass shoes that you can move in and out for balancing your wheel. So that's kind of how that works. So if it goes here, then you're just going to be moving these weights up a little bit. And then if it goes here, well, then you're going to move the weights. So you can kind of just move these weights around until it doesn't really prefer one side or the other. And so then I chose this wheel because it was already close to the radius that I want. So then I don't have to mess with another stone to get this radius. So it's very close. So then all we really need to do is just dress this and then we're good to grind. So I'm going to get this set up in my grinder. And on these old grinders, make sure you get under here and clear out any debris under there to make sure it doesn't throw off your stone. So just making sure that this is always clean in here before you get started. So I'm gonna get the wheel mounted. This is a left-hand thread, by the way, so you just put it on there, put the nut on, and then put the cover. I got that cover right there. And reason I'm making this video is the manual is just, well, it's written for someone who knows what they're doing, and there's nothing visual on it, so it's impossible. But first we're going to do, and really this radius, I wouldn't touch it, but for the sake of this video and your entertainment and learning, I will reface for the radius. So this is the radius dresser. And if you look on your dresser tool, because every one of them is different, it says 3.256. So that's for a 0 depth. So as you can see, this is the dresser, and this is my gauge on that number right there. So we'll get to that in a bit, but the idea is this thing swings to dress for the radius. Well, 3.256, and my radius, I want, where is it? 530 seconds is the radius I'm using, and which is 156 and a decimal. Disregard this. I did this wrong. We are going to be doing. Well, actually, that number is real easy. That cancels out, so that just goes straight to 3.100, because all that minus 3.1. Perfect. So that means I am going to put my micrometer here like this, adjust my gauge, and then I butt the dresser tool up against this plate, and that's going to get me the radius that I want to dress the wheel to. So I'm going to do that because that just kind of makes sense, right? I hope it does. So my distance from here to here is now 3.1. So you just take the dressing stone, butt it up against, tighten it. It's not rocket science. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you'll take your gauge, loosen it, and throw to the other side. And that's it. So that way you can just store it this way. It's out of the way. And so now we're ready to face. So if you can see that, it kind of, radiuses. So if we kind of try to line it up with that bottom there, you can kind of see it. It goes around a little bit. And yeah, this is going to be hard to do one-handed. You know what? Here we go. I'm going to get things set up, and I'm going to see if we can show a video of it. So, I say the word "so" a lot. You can kind of see it's following the radius that I already have there, and I'm going to try one-handed. I'll see how this goes. So I'm going to turn on the wheel, and turn on my water, and you always dress with water going on it, because if you don't, you'll actually wear out your dressing bit and you'll get kind of a taper. So I like to move the wheel up against. Here, I'm gonna back off a little bit. I'm going to put the water off to the side, and so I'm just going to go and put the tool up against the wheel, so it just get it. We're going to be using the feed here. So we're gonna put the coolant on there, and then we're gonna swing my radius tool. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you have no radius on your wheel, you're going to have to do a couple of passes and play with it. But since we were close, we just did it all in one pass. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect, but we're going to take our gauge up against it, and then we're going to see how we did. Once it slows down, these wheels take forever. And that's pretty good. I'm happy. So we're going to do the same on the other side, and then we're going to switch. Come on, words are hard. Hard's a word. We're going to get the other facer. Dang it, words. And yeah, then we're going to do this side, and then we're going to face this. I know there's a better word. I can't think of it right now. And here, just watch on the wheel itself. You'll kind of see material getting removed. So then now we're going to do the face of it. So I've got a different tool for that. And this is probably going to turn into being a long video. This is just me assuming you kind of know the controls of how things work on this thing. So if I'm vague, sorry. I can't show every single little part of how to do this. I need to figure out a better thing. I need to have all the tools set up next to it, but for now this is what I've got. So then I've got this, because you don't want to use the other one for going straight across, because then you dull it out. And then we're just going to run this one across. So I'll get that set up and then we'll do it. And this is going to be the dressing. Sorry, that's the word, dressing of the face of the, and then you're just gonna move this, and it's all, the product of your grind is only as good as your dressing. So it's going slow but not fast, and going fast, it's tricky. So I hope I can do this right with one hand. Sorry, that wasn't good, but you know, those little stutters, you don't want that. I'm going to do it again with the camera down, because I just can't. So I'm going to take another pass on it, and I just can't do it one-handed. But you know, that was about the right speed. You just don't want any stutters, because those stutters will leave lines in your grind. So you should be able to face the whole thing in about 2 to 3 seconds, or maybe 4. So it's just getting it even, because if you have it too coarse, it'll make a terrible looking grind. If it's too fine, you'll get your stone will grind too hot, like it'll make the workpiece too hot, and you'll get burn marks. So it's all in kind of figuring out what works. So dressing a wheel is probably one of the hardest things to do. Alright, now I've got my crank set up in its, well, position, and I already had this indicated in. There's going to be plenty of other times for indication lessons. But you've got these controls here, so this little pin right here, as you can see that moves, that's your lock. That'll lock it in the perfect straight up and down. So get those locked in. And this one's out, but that's because I'm done. And so then you're going to be using this to move the whole head up and down, and also on this side. And you're going to be going until you can get your needle within a thousandth of an inch. I mean, really, a thousandth is pretty dang good. It's hard to get better than that. If you can get it to not have the needle move at all, yeah, it's pretty good. But if I get within a thousandth, I'm happy as can be. So I've got that. So we're ready to go there. And I put the key so that it fits in the middle of the chuck there. And then I have it set to 0 degrees. Now, as I do this, I'll explain why in just a little bit. But you're going to go all the way, you're going to go bring the head down a little bit, and then you're going to bring it up. And then when you do that, write down the number that you're at. And so right now I have it at 8. So I wrote down that number with Sharpie, because that number will always change. And then here I have it at 18. So just write that down on there, and that's going to be a reference for the rods. So I'll explain that in a little bit. For a flat plane crank, it's not as big of a deal, but for a V8 with a 2-plane or a V6 or whatever you're doing, that is much more important. So, and I'll get to that in a bit. So there we go. We are getting ready to have this, to get grinding on this one. So yeah, just indicate your mains in, and then we're going to grind the mains, and then I'll show you more indication tips when we get to the rods. So we're grinding this crank because the motor got dusted, and when a motor dusts, you get that dust in your oil, and it turns to sandpaper inside your motor and wears everything out. So air filters, very important. So this is all scratched up and bad. This one's good. This one could have polished. This one was kind of right at that spot of, yeah, we're grinding it. And we're going to be doing the rods as well. This one is messed up, and that one's messed up. So this one, Simpson motor, it's weird. The block is metric, but the crank is standard because Perkins allowed India to make the block, which anything made in India is crap. Rest in peace, Mahindra. You were a crappy tractor, and now you're gone. Here we go. So I got my numbers written down. This is based off of a Massey 4203. Numbers are the same. I measured it with the micrometer. It's good. So I've got my target numbers here. So I'm going to be chasing those. So I'm starting off with my mains. So I'm going to try to hit in this window here. And I always grind a little bit bigger, and then I can always polish down. So let's get started. We'll first traverse out, and then make sure that your piece moves freely. Because if you look, see there, my right. Where is it? Right there. See, the grinding stone moves. So you kind of want to be where you've got a free spot. You'll know what I mean if you are using one of these machines. So you want to find that free spot where it's just the crank moving side to side, not the grinding wheel. Then you're going to bring it in. By the way, this is your fast traverse over here, so that's what moves the wheel in really quick. And get it close, and then you're going to turn on your wheel, and then you're going to get it to just kiss the side here and not remove any material. And if you hear just a king, then you're good. Sorry. Here, so you want to bring it so it just kisses this side here. And so wheel on. Ooh, that was cool. Bounced off. Now we're locked in. Alright. Let's see how I can do one-handed. This is just, it's hard. I need an active camera. Watch my videos so I can buy an active camera. Oh, first turn on the work. That's this button right here. And then this right here is your clutch lever. So you make sure your pins are pulled out. And then engage the clutch lever. And then your crank will start to spin. And then I'm gonna, there we go. So I'm gonna back off just a touch. So we're on, you saw sparks kind of fly. We're touching this right here, so we're good. So then now we're gonna turn on some coolant. And we're gonna start grinding away. So, right around here, we should start getting some sparks. There we are. So you can kind of see some pitting, and we're cleaning this crank up already. So we're gonna go just a little bit more, and then we're gonna get our gauge set up so we can have a time saver. And then here's a little trick that I do. I'll take a Sharpie and I'll mark on this wheel roughly where I'm at, so that way I can quickly get back to where I was working. So I'm gonna back it off and then get my gauge set up. So I measure, sorry burp, measure the journal here. Number I got was 2.746, so then I subtract this number, that gave me 667 10,000ths. So this is called an Arnold gauge, and what this is, just something that can easily be moved out of the way, and then it's got a finger on it. You put that there, and then you can see that it moves a little bit right there. It's an old dial, and so I know I've kind of got it set. You move things around here. It's got a little quick adjust for diameter, and so I go 5 thousandths, so sorry, 5 thousandths, 6.5 ish, so somewhere in there. So once I get to 0, I should be at my final dimension, and that way I can grind and see my dimension all at the same time. So when I get grinding, I'll show you and you'll kind of see that dial moving. So now we're grinding, and you can see the gauge is doing a little something funny, but we're gonna go. It'll even out in a little bit, but you can see it's moving, and we're grinding. It could be because I'm just not putting enough pressure into it. So I'm gonna start going, and come on, focus. There we go, we're getting better. So we're gonna grind and grind, and then when I get to about 1/2 thousandths, I always double check to make sure I'm doing good. And now I'm gonna double check my measurements to make sure we're good. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. So then now I can take my gauge off. Set it to the side so I don't grind it. Yeah, we're gonna double check my measurements. When I look at the way this is cutting, we'll see if you can see in the camera. I can see with the naked eye. Maybe if I go away and then zoom in. But you can kind of see little lines so I can feel lines with my fingernail, kind of like if I'm taking a little bit of a coarser cut with the lathe. And what that's telling me is I went a little too quick with the dressing and didn't quite get that right. So it's gonna have a little bit of a coarser feel to it, but that's okay. Once I get the polishing wheel and smoothing it all out, it'll be fine. I'd rather have it be too coarse than too fine, because if it's too fine, you'll kind of get a burning look, and then it makes it rough to grind with. So I'd prefer coarse over too fine of a dress on that wheel. So according to my measurement, that's kind of what my goal was. Go 5/10,000ths under what my gauge says, because that's kind of hard to get perfect. So we're gonna get my caliper out, and this is hard to do. I mean, everything's just hard to do with one hand. I think that's why God gave us two. And that's pretty dang good. So I think I just about nailed that. So yeah, we're at 39.5. So we are 2/10,000ths above the maximum diameter, which means there's plenty of room for me to polish later. And so yeah, we're gonna be happy with that and move on. We're gonna take this down. That's simply just done by moving the grinding stone over, and then I'm just going to do the same thing until my dimension is where I want it to be. Then that journal is done, and then we're going to go next, all 5, and then I'm just going to get that done. Videoing takes too much time. I need to get this done. So yeah, you saw how that works. We're just going to do that again right here, and then move on and get all the mains done. So you can kind of see where there's a witness line. Yeah, you can kind of see it right about here. It's where it kind of started touching this side, because I just ground a little bit off here. So then that kind of tells me, and I measured it, I nailed it. So it's gonna kind of have a little peak right here. So what I'm gonna do is when I polish it, that is gonna disappear, and it'll look like it was just one perfect stone that did the whole thing. This one you can really see how wore out it is. You can see right there tore up, and there it's clean. So it was indicated in. I already took 2 or 3 thousandths out of it, so it's pretty well tore up. But yeah, we're halfway through the mains. So mains are done. Man, I say so a lot. Mains are done. We are going to be moving up to do the rods. So we're going to start off with these, because we're going to be lifting up the whole head. The head on both sides. So we got numbers here, and the stroke is 5 on this. So we're going to be taking this little line, putting it way up here. So I'll move them up an inch here, then an inch here, and then this is where this number is going to come in handy that you wrote up at the top. I'm going to lift it up to close, and then we'll start indicating it in. So just so you know, I'm going to be lifting one side an inch, then the other. First, unchuck one side to make sure you're not going to be binding anything or breaking something. Alright, make sure that before you take your pins out, when you adjust it all the way up, make sure you put your counterweights to offset the weight of the crank, because now you can see that one side is a lot heavier than the other. Well, I got it all balanced now, so my weights are shifted out. That is done with this screw right here. So I have ratchet or breaker bar with extension and a socket to get that easily. So now we have it somewhat close, and we got some fine tuning. Ouch, hurt myself. So I'm gonna mark here. So when I say this is down, this is the bottom of the head, this is the top of the head, your adjustment screws. So I had the bottom up, and make sure you always rotate one direction, because can you see how it moves around when I just move it a little bit back and forth? It moves a lot. So always move in one direction when you're fine tuning. So with the bottom up, set that to 0 right there. Now we're gonna go and we're gonna put top up, and we're gonna put both pins in on both sides. That one's a little stiff. I need to take it apart and clean it. So see, we are 30 thousandths off. We're going from here to here. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust our angles. We're going to loosen this and this. That loosens up the angle adjustment on this. So then I'm just going to put this in here, and I'm going to kind of, knock it around a little bit until we get in between. So if we need to move, it was 30 off, we move it 15. It's always half. So that should get us pretty close. So we're going to put that at 0 and then lock these down. We're going to take our steady pins out, if you want to call it that. Now we're going to go back to bottom up, and we are at the 4. It'll be close enough until we get to where we want to be. And then we're going to go top back up. And so we're off by 5. But I'm not going to worry about that yet, because, or you know what, we can fix that. Let's fix that now. So we're still at 0. Let's put the top up again. We're going to put steady pins in, unlock those. See, crank grinding is 70% setup. So if we were 5 off, we're going to move 2.5. So kind of going to split the difference there. And that should, and it's like a lathe. What you do to one side, it's happening to the other. Okay, bottom up. And I'm gonna do that. So we move it to a 0. Now we're gonna put top up again. And we're at the 0, or very close. So we're gonna make a fine tune on that next turn. So now we're gonna put top up again. Or actually, this is what we're gonna do. So we're gonna be looking here at, so now we need to adjust the up and down. So what is off right now is the up and down. So we got our angle right of twisting to indicate off of a journal, but now we need to move it up and down to find that. And that's where this number is gonna come in play. So if we say bottom front, so this front towards me, we are going to move that to 0. Doing this one-handed again. Come on, focus. There we go. So if I rotate, we're at 0. Now we're going to rotate top front. And how much are we off by? We are off by like 8 or 9. Well, if we look at here, see that 0? On the dial it says it's pointed at the 0. Well, we're going to move it to the 8, and we should be pretty dang spot on. And I'm sure the same is going to be on the other side. So that's just to so I always make it so that I can rotate out. If you have to go backwards, it just messes everything up. So I like to inch it up until I get that nailed. So that's a little trick there for you. Sharpie, because you can just rub it off when you're done. Because things always change on this machine. So that's how you indicate on this. Alright, here we go. We got rods going. I already ground one side, now I'm moving on to the other. So I already got my gauge set up. So I've got 10 thousandths to grind here. So that's done, because it needs to go all the way around. And yeah, let's get going. And that's it. So, got a little trick coming up on this next one. So this journal's done, but this one, the up and down is fine, but the angle is wrong. So here we're at 0, and we got top side down. So if we rotate this, and we focus on the gauge, we're gonna see now with the top side up, see that we are like 6-7 thousandths off. So what is happening here is I have to do an adjustment to get that to 0 by changing the angle again. So these were what's called parent journals, so they should be the same. And just like your parents, they should be working together. Well, not that these are going to be divorced or anything, but they have their kerfuffles and they're a little bit different. But you know what? We're going to make this all right by tweaking things a little bit and working together. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change the angle a little bit. So when I mentioned, and then this is for like V8s or something like that, where you got 2 planes. If you don't know what a 2-plane crankshaft is, I mean, that's what most V8s have. New Corvette 5.5 is a flat plane crank V8. Anyways, that number 8. If you can imagine a V8, you've got a journal here, a journal here, a journal here, and a journal on the other side for your V8. See, this is one plane, but that has a plane here and a plane here on the V8. So you don't have any parent rod journals. So knowing your stroke and writing all that down is very important, because here we can kind of say, oh, here and here, we can kind of go back and forth with our readout or our gauge and kind of make things fix. Well, you don't have that with the V8 with the dual plane. So that's why it's important to write down those numbers. So that way you can indicate them in, because you don't have a parent journal, but you do on a flat plane crank. So yeah, we're going to adjust that angle, and then we're going to finish do number 3 crank pin. Well, we're pretty much at the end now. We just need to polish the crank. I've got I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's a Goodson handheld I like this thing. It works pretty good. It wasn't cheap, but it works real good. Like it. And yeah, let's get this polished up. It's a brand new 320 grit, so I'm really careful on the first time using a new one. I'll usually get 2 or 3 cranks out of a belt. So if it's a brand new one, just take it real easy on the first couple journals, because it will remove material rather quickly. So I'm gonna just have the work going. And I'll mic everything, make sure it's all good. I skipped these 2 journals. That belt won't fit in here. So I got a shorter, narrower belt that we'll be using on these 2 journals. So I'm just gonna double check my work, see if it needs, because it does remove a little bit of material, not too much. And then, yeah. There we go. It is all shiny. Make sure you put a penetrating oil or something, spray some oil on there. Keep it from rusting, because it's freshly ground and it is going to flash rust. So go ahead and put some of that stuff on there. Crank is fresh, ready to go. Why did I make this video? I don't know, two reasons. When I first learned how to use this as well, here we go, Storm Vulcan Model 15A. When I first learned how to use this machine, all I had to go off of was the manual, and sitting down and reading that manual over and over and over again. None of it made sense. This is old school. No one does this anymore, so I had no one to ask, which is a bummer. So now, if you've got a machine like this and you don't know how to use it, well, there you go. Hope that helps, or at least gives you an idea of why I do, or how to kind of do it. Not that I'm doing it the right way. There's some things that I don't do. Like, it has on this one right here, this thing is pneumatic, so it's got a cylinder in there so that you can do quicker, like put the cranks in really quick. Well, I don't do production work, so I just don't use that, and I don't like that. I like chucks holding things, and it's not going to go nowhere. So there's some things that, sure, comment if you'd like, interested. There's always that one person who talks like he knows what he's doing and will correct people even though he's never done it before or has no clue what he's talking about. So we'll see if there's someone like that in the comments. I like to call them keyboard warriors or Mr. Know-It-Alls. So there's number one purpose. If you've never can't find out how to use this machine, or you just don't know and can't find anyone to help you, here you go. I figured it out the hard way, and I mean, I've never had a problem. Every crank I've done has worked out. And number two, to just show how hard it is to grind a crank. And so if you aren't the one grinding a crank, you're having someone do it, and when a shop charges $300-400 to grind your crank, be patient with them. Don't say, oh, why are you charging so much? It's a lot of work. It's hard. And I mean, I've done, I don't know, 50 crankshafts or so in my time of doing this. I don't do them all that often. But it is hard. And there's shops where that's all the guy does. He'll do a crank in 90 minutes, no problem. It takes me 3 to 4 hours to do a crankshaft. It's a lot of work. So, it's just, that's not all I do. I know how to use every single machine in here. I use all of them. I know how to do it. It's a lot of work. So when you're at a machine shop and they charge you this, it's a lot of money, just understand each one of those wheels, $300. Buying a crankshaft grinder itself, you're going to spend 15-20 grand on a decent used one. If you got a brand new one, I bet with a computer, I bet they're $100,000. So don't complain when it's $300. You're not going to get into crankshaft grinding and do it for yourself at a economical price. So help the person out. He's there for you, to do things for you. Don't complain. That just goes for every machine here. Every machine. Oh, you're going to charge that much to install pistons on a connecting? It's a lot of work and takes time. And if you mess up, it costs you a lot of money. You're backwards. So, 2 reasons. How do you use it and why does it cost so much? So, thank you for watching this video. And, I enjoy it. When I make videos on how I do stuff, it just kind of helps me think of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Helps me become a better machinist. So I've been doing this for about 5 years now, by myself full time, and I've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.